little bit of background myself on VRIFY is I've been in the mining sector for about 10 years. My own background is on the corporate side. I was the CEO of a mining company that was acquired a few years ago. But since then, from everything I saw being on that corporate side and presenting to investors and doing everything you absolutely can, fighting tooth and nail to get your share price up and make your next financing and create value for your shareholders, what I realized is that I don't think we're doing it the right way. And I don't mean to stand here up on the podium and criticize the way the entire sector markets itself, but I do think there are opportunities to reinvent how we present ourselves, and that's to the retail investor, the retail investors we have today, the sophisticated investors, the institutional investors, and so on. So at VRIFY, we like to try and have fun. VRIFY is a company. What we do is we create interactive presentations for mining companies to present what they do to their shareholders. I'm presenting off an iPad today. I'm using the VRIFY platform to do it. So about 2 years ago, we created a video, and after 10 years in the sector, and I'm sure a lot of these lines, those of you who have invested in this sector for any period of time, and I'm sure if you've been here for the last 2 days, you hear a lot of one-liners like open at depth, blue sky potential, we're in elephant country, and so on. So we created a video, we threw it on YouTube, we hired an actor, and it got about 20,000 views, which I guess in mining is viral. But the idea was we're kind of just poking fun at the way the things that we do and so on and so on. So at this conference, we decided we'd have a little bit of fun, and we did a little bit of a social experiment, and we created a fake company, and we gave that same actor a booth here to just sit there and talk to investors all day long. Some of you, I apologize if you've gone through it and you thought Elephant Exploration was a real company. It's not. What you're looking at is, that's a geological map of Mars. That's a Lego geological model that my 4-year-old daughter helped me with. But essentially what we did was we just wanted to have conversations with people and just kind of promote anything. So if you were to ask him what was so good about his project, he'd just say it's the best project there is out there. And what was really interesting and why I kind of redid this whole presentation is it didn't really go as we thought. We thought that everyone would go, oh, this is hilarious, and have some fun with it and so on. But 70-80% of the conversations, people leave them a business card and say, hey, can you send me some more information? This is really interesting. It's kind of funny, but we're not here to just make fun of everybody that attends. This is a great conference, and people are here looking for good investment opportunities. What's really interesting is the way that we present today, it's obviously not getting through if we can bring in somebody who literally has zero experience in the mining sector and people are still interested in having a conversation about the potential of this company. So the word for 2020, and the theme of this presentation is investing in 2020, I think it's going to be divergence. And I think technology is going to play a big role in that. And by divergence, I mean what we're going to see is we're going to see a separation of the companies that have something real and the companies that don't. And that person who is literally just selling nothing is no longer going to be able to exist. And the reason I say that is because I'm sitting on the technology side with a company that we think we're going to be the difference. We do believe that VRIFY, that we are going to create a tool that is going to sort of unveil and shine a spotlight on everybody that is trying to sell you something that you shouldn't be investing in. I tried to turn it into a chart. There's absolutely zero math behind this chart whatsoever. But if you look at the black line above, it's real companies, and the gray is the rest. And I think as we roll this out, we are going to see a divergence of companies, and you as investors are going to be able to go and actually figure out what you're doing. You're not just going to sit there with a PDF presentation, listen to a really good pitch, and then feel that that's kind of where you should be putting your hard-earned money. So if I had to summarize what I think is wrong right now in the way that people present, it's this. It's that this type of information does not make sense to most people. The world today, everybody has a shrinking attention span. Everyone's used to the sort of the instant gratification they get from a new alert on LinkedIn or whatever app they use. They don't have time to go through and learn how to understand a geological map like this. It's illogical to think that people are going to spend the time to do it. So what we're doing is we're still continuing to invest the same way we did 10 or 20 years ago before technology came along and could make our lives a whole lot easier. And what I'm going to do here is I want to take you through a few examples. I'm talking about verifying this fancy technology and so on, but what I want to do is I want to show you the difference between a VRIFY presentation and the way that companies present information today. So what you're looking at here, this is a real map. These are real results from a company. This is from a press release, and you can see the press release in the background. So what you would see is a company would put out a press release, you'd see a drill table in that press release, maybe a map or a cross section, and then that stock, if it was an exciting drill hole, might trade 10,000, 100,000, maybe a few $1 million. But people are making decisions to buy or sell that stock with blinders on. They're only looking at a very small portion of the data set. And I'll use this example. Just before I get into that portion of the presentation, one of my favorite quotes, I don't know who said this, but this seems to be the industry's solution to the problem. Well, the reason that nobody's investing in resource stocks is because there's not enough investors. We need to find more of them. Any conversation you have with an IR shop or a PR firm or a marketing agency or anybody, it's all about getting your brand and your company in front of more people. But I think we need to take a step back and realize we're speaking Russian and everybody's waiting for English, or whatever it may be. We're not speaking the same language. It doesn't matter how many people we put this stuff in front of, it doesn't make sense to them. And that's where we need to stop and rethink how we actually present. So looking at these, looking at this press release as an example, this plan map, again, these are real results. This is what it looks and feels like in VRIFY. So VRIFY's entire business is built on simplifying information. But to do that, we need to figure out what is the right information. What do we want to show? So what we're looking at is that same company in a 3D model. So blue here is the resource, and that drill table of drill results you can now look at, and you can see where that drill hole is in relation to the existing resource. Now that's really important, and again, that's pretty hard to tell when you're just looking at something like this. Is that company drilling within its known resource, or is it hundreds or thousands of meters away from where that resource actually is? That's the first part of what we do. Now, this is not a video I'm showing you. It's a 3D model, it's fully interactive. I can take you through it, but I can also embed it within a press release. I'm just using an iPad, but any of this can be put on a company's website right within a press release, can be brought into a boardroom for an actual conversation. Now let's look at the other drill holes within that press release. In this example, some of those drill holes are now sitting 500 meters away from where they were before. And at the same time, if it's an open pit type deposit, it's really important to know how close it is to surface. In this example, green and red is your oxide and your transitional material, and blue is your sulfide. Sulfide material is about 3 or 4 times as expensive to process as oxide material. So again, it'd be nice to know what we're actually investing in. Now, every company has a 3D model. Please don't ever touch a company that does not model what it does. What I'm showing you is not mind-blowing. It's not fancy technology. What we've done is we've just simplified it to a point where it actually makes sense to an investor. Now you happen to have me in the room to take you through it, but if I wasn't here, I could just put some subtitles in or an audio narrative and take investors through. To me, that is how people are going to be making investment decisions in the future, and it's why I believe we are going to see a divergence in 2020 between real companies and companies that are literally just promoting the same drill hole that's been drilled for the last 50 years because they know they can get a good result, even though that entire ore body might be 10 meters wide and sitting under a lake. As I go through this, just a few examples, now you're looking at those same drill results in the context of every single drill hole that's ever been drilled on this property. So now you're able to determine, are they just re-drilling this thing again and again, or is this a legitimate new discovery? Now, I'm pretty sure if you've looked at any press release for any company that you've invested in, I'm assuming people here have invested in exploration companies because that's why we're here today, that you've made an investment decision without knowing if that area has been drilled or not before, because you've just trusted management. There is nothing within 43-101 disclosure or any of the regulatory bodies that makes a company put this information out with a press release. They don't need to. Maybe if you dig deep enough in a 400-page technical report, you could find it. But what we do at VRIFY is we really push the companies that we work with to be as transparent as possible. Now the geophysics map, I'm sure you'll see 400 different examples of the geophysics map here. It doesn't mean anything because without giving it a bit of context. Just seeing a nice red target like this, you're not sure, should I be investing in the fact that you have lots of red or green or blue or what it is. But for a company like this, if I was to trace kind of where that red high is and then turn off the IP, you can see it correlates really well with the blue, and the blue is where I know there's gold. So if I put that back on, I should probably go and drill anything that's just that has that same IP signature. And if I take a look under that, because I've got 80 years of drilling history here, I can see there's not a single drill hole under that target. So if that company was going to come to you and say, hey, I need $500,000 so I can go drill this target, it'd be nice to know if it was ever drilled before, or why you'd like to drill it, and so on. But instead, what you're usually given is something that just looks like this. And then probably some thumbs up and some exciting target or elephant country or whatever it may be. The other example I want to give you is a company that we just did some, we actually did some of this work just last week. This is GT Gold. It's a really exciting company. It's a pre-resource stage company. It's in BC, and the reason I want to show it is because you don't need a resource to be able to show people kind of the potential of your project in a 3D model. So these are two slides. This slide and this slide here. I literally took them off last night from GT's website. And if you don't, first off, if you're not a geologist and you can't really see in 3D, when you see sections like this, and a section is just a slice of bread, as if you cut up your deposit like a loaf of bread, you don't know how those all fit. So seeing drill holes in section with big drill results, that's great for somebody who can think in 3D, but it's really hard for a person to look at a map like this and a map like this and understand what they're actually investing in. Now, we did this for GT. They gave a presentation today. We did this for them last week. It took us about a day and a half to put all this together. But taking that same project, and they have their Saddle South and Saddle North deposit, looking at the IP, in this case, and you'll learn as we go through it, pink is good, taking that same map and actually putting it in space so you can see, and then those cross sections that you were looking at were side by side. Turns out they're not actually just slices of bread. They actually kind of intersect each other on an angle. And then seeing what those cross sections look like in relation to all the drilling. And you can see in this example, there's a fault, and that's this right here, and it just cuts off the entire deposit. There's no results on the other side of that fault. But kind of if you continue to go through, there's some of the drill highlights from the press release. And there's the, it's not an ore body, but it's the copper shell. So you're starting to see, well, it looks like the high grade zone hangs together really well. But the other thing is, when you look at all the drilling that's been done on this project, you can see the drilling is really concentrated around the area where the discovery is made. So you know there's a lot of potential in this company if they decide to start stepping out and looking around. They focused on a core area, but there's nothing to say that kind of if they were to drill here and here and here and elsewhere. And the reason I'm here is not to promote GT, but it's to show you, if you saw the same diagram but there was 400 drill holes in it, it might make you think twice about what you're actually investing in. But if all you ever saw was a cross section, you wouldn't know kind of that additional information. And then kind of looking at this deposit, now that we know pink is good because they were able to find a really nice high grade juicy system there, let's go find some more areas of pink. And that's, I'm any geologist in the room, I apologize. I'm just completely butchering sort of the technical aspects of this, but what I'm trying to do is make the point that there is more information that exists within each of these individual companies that is not coming across to the investor. And that information is really important for an investor to make a good decision. And it's not because these companies are crooked or shady or anything else. It's because until now, the tools have not existed for them to be able to present that to you. Because if they just sent you their geologist 3D model, that doesn't make any sense. You wouldn't be able to get anything from that. So in summary, this is kind of where our business is at today. VRIFY has grown. In the last year and a half, we've grown from about 20 companies we work with. We now have just over 120. We've had 4 companies sign on to VRIFY in the last week. Our business is growing. Our objective is to create a tool that everybody uses, the go-to place where everybody in the sector uses to learn about mining companies. That way you as an investor don't need to stumble around in the dark trying to understand what these 3,500 different mining companies are trying to tell you. As we do this, we create a lot of standardization and normalization across the data. Every one of the 120 companies that are on VRIFY's platform, you're going to see the same color scheme within their resource models and little subtle things that we do to make it that much easier for an investor to understand. Now, up until today, most of the tools that we've created at VRIFY are not for you as investors, they're for companies. but for company executives to go into a meeting and sit down and hand out 2 or 3 iPads and walk people through what they do, or remotely connect to an investor. That's going to change in 2020 as we start to build out the investor side of our platform as well. Of the 120 companies that we have on VRIFY right now, I'll be the first to say we have about 6 that are really using it well. So if you go to VRIFY.com, what you're going to see, you'll see 3D models that don't make a lot of sense to you. And what we've realized is that we need to roll up our sleeves and really help companies tell their stories. We just hired someone named Tara Hassan. She's a research analyst with Raymond James, she was a senior research analyst with Raymond James. Tara is working closely with me at VRIFY to sit down with company executive teams and sort of take out and extract exactly what they need to tell their investors, and then use VRIFY and our technology to help them communicate that. So the idea is, you as an investor, especially a retail investor, you don't need to go get a geophysics degree. You don't need to understand what this actually looks like. The way you should be approaching conferences and investing is more like this. You should have a heat map with investors and an investment thesis that fits you, and you should be able to apply that to a conference like this and know what 3 or 4 companies that you really, that really resonate with you. So that's kind of where I see things going for 2020. I just put Q3 as when this divergence is going to happen. Like every technology company, we get big grandiose ideas and it takes us a little longer to develop them. But I think the real opportunity, if I look at this, is right here. And it's that. It's when this occurs, and I don't know what that is. Of the 3,500 companies out there, maybe 2,500 are real and 1,000 aren't. Who knows what that ratio is? But I think once we're able to really kind of put a spotlight on the entire sector, I think the real companies are really going to shine. And I think there are a lot of companies that probably aren't as attractive investments. When that happens, I do think there's a lot of money to be made. Because commodity prices, if we look at where, I'll use gold as an example, if we look at where gold is today, last time gold was at this price 6-7 years ago, the gold equities were way higher than they are today. And we can sit here and say, oh, it's just a matter of time before they catch up. Or maybe it's because there's just so much fat in the system or so much noise that people aren't able to articulate and pick out which are the real ones they should be investing in. But if we're able to provide a tool that allows investors to do that, then you should see those stocks greatly outperform the rest. So I'll leave it at that. If anyone has any questions on any of the material I presented today, you're welcome to email at ceo@verify.com. Slick, as we call him, is sitting in booth 936. It's a highly entertaining conversation if anybody would like to go. The one thing I do ask is just go play along. Just see how much you can rile them up. Don't let them know you're onto them. So on that note, thank you very much.